Well, hello, I'm David Freeman with Is That Really in the Bible? In the year that Jesus was crucified, after he had been in the grave for 3 days and 3 nights, according to the scriptures, he rose from the dead and became the first fruits from the dead. Now, there was an incident with Mary. Jesus told Mary, he said, "Touch me not." This is right after his resurrection, and she went to grab him, and he said, "Touch me not, for I have not yet ascended to the Father." In other words, he had to present himself to his Father as the first fruits from the dead. Now, your Bible tells us this plainly in 1 Corinthians 15 and verse 20. "But now is Christ risen from the dead and become the first fruits of them that slept." Now, about the same time, Jesus presented himself to the Father as the first fruits from the dead. As the Sabbath was ending, people made their way down to a field of grain. A man stood over a stalk of grain with a sickle in his hand. And through a series of questions and the audience responding back, the man said, "Is the sun down?" And the people would shout, "Yes!" "This sheaf," and he would point to the sheaf, and the people shouted, "Yes!" "With this sickle," and the people responded, "Yes!" "Shall I reap?" And the people said, "Yes!" And with a stroke, he cut off from the ground. This represents the first fruits of the early grain harvest. And it all occurred the same time Jesus was presenting himself to the Father as the first fruits from the dead. This offering depicted Christ. He was the real wave sheaf offering of the first fruits. Now let's take a look at this back in the Old Testament. Let's get educated here. Leviticus 23 and verse 10 says, "Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, When you come into the land which I give unto you, you shall reap the harvest thereof. Then you shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest unto the priest. And he shall wave the sheaf before the Lord to be accepted for you. On the morrow after the Sabbath, the priest shall wave it." In other words, this is the day, the moment Jesus presented himself as the first fruits from the dead. Now, I want to tell you something. Listen closely. God is now calling a first fruits. In fact, listen to this. God is now only, at this present time, God is now only calling a first fruit. You see, in the Bible, we had the early spring harvest, which is the first fruits. There was a much later harvest of fruits at the end of the growing season. But right now, we're not talking about that later harvest. Right now, I'm talking about the early spring harvest. God is now calling a first fruit.